everybody, it's another story time this week with our friend Lily. And Sheba's over here too. See if I can grab her. There she is. There's Sheba. So there's our babies that are going to do story time with us this week. So this week, our animal of the week is a rabbit. Have you ever had a pet rabbit or seen one out in the wild? I have. I really love rabbits. They are so cute and so soft and furry. I don't know if these girls have ever seen a rabbit. Probably not, or they might have chased it, because that's what doggies like to do. So today we'll be reading from one of my favorite authors who wrote lots of stories about rabbits. And her name is Beatrix Potter. And one of her most famous stories is The Tale of Peter Rabbit, which I think I've read to you guys maybe before. So today we'll be reading a different tale of another bunny. Lily will be back. She was still here with us. So we'll get started with our story for today. And it's called The Tale of Benjamin Bunny. So one morning, a little rabbit sat on a bank. He pricked his ears and listened to the trick-trot of a pony. A gig was coming along the road. It was driven by Mr. McGregor, and beside him sat Mrs. McGregor in her best bonnet. Now, if you've ever read Peter Rabbit, I bet you remember Mr. McGregor. He was the farmer that Peter was running from. So what that means is that he was driving a cart that was pulled along by horses. That's what a gig is. So Benjamin Bunny saw his chance. What do you think he's going to do? He's going to go in the garden, isn't he? So as soon as they had passed, little Benjamin Bunny slid down the road and set off with a hop, skip, and a jump to call upon his relations who lived in the wood at the back of Mr. McGregor's garden. I wonder who his relations are. Who are his relatives? Let's find out. That wood was full of rabbit holes, and in the neatest, sandiest hole of all lived Benjamin's aunt and his cousins, Flopsy, Mopsy, Cottontail, and Peter. So Peter's his cousin. Old Mrs. Rabbit was a widow. She earned her living by knitting rabbit wool mittens and muffatees. I once bought a pair at a bazaar. She also sold herbs and rosemary tea and rabbit tobacco, which is what we call lavender. So lavender is a plant that smells really nice. That's what that means. Little Benjamin did not very much want to see his aunt. He came round the back of the fir tree and nearly tumbled upon the top of his cousin Peter. Come on, girls, come on. They heard a noise, so they had to go jump up and investigate. Come on, sheep. Come on, come on. There's Lily, here she is, she's back. Dogs, we don't ever know what they're going to do we? It's back to the story. Peter was sitting by himself. He looked poorly and was dressed in a red cotton pocket handkerchief. Oh dear. Peter, said little Benjamin in a whisper, who has got your clothes? Peter replied, the scarecrow in Mr. McGregor's garden, and described how he had been chased about the garden and had dropped his shoes and coat. Little Benjamin sat down beside his cousin and assured him that Mr. McGregor had just gone out in his gig, and Mrs. McGregor also, and certainly for that day because she was wearing her best bonnet. Peter said he hoped that it would rain. At this point, old Mrs. Rabbit's voice was heard inside the rabbit hole calling, Cottontail, Cottontail, fetch some more chamomile. Peter said he thought he might feel better if he went for a walk. You think you'll feel better after a walk, Lily? You do sometimes, don't you? They went away hand in hand and got upon the flat top of the wall at the bottom of the wood. From here, they looked down into Mr. McGregor's garden. Peter's coat and shoes were plainly to be seen on the scarecrow, topped with an old tam-o'-shanter of Mr. McGregor's. Now that means that's a hat. It's a type of hat. So we'll see that hat. Little Benjamin said, "It spoils people's clothes to squeeze under a gate. The proper way to get in is to climb down a pear tree." Peter fell down head first, but it was of no consequence as the bed below was newly raked and quite soft. Sheba, come on. It had been sown with lettuce. They left a great many odd little footmarks all over the bed, especially little Benjamin, who was wearing clogs. Clogs are a type of shoe. Little Benjamin said that the first thing to be done was to get back Peter's clothes in order that they might be able to use the pocket handkerchief. They took them off the scarecrow. There had been rain during the night. There was water in the shoes, and the coat was somewhat shrunk. It had gotten smaller. Benjamin tried on the tam-o'-shanter, but it was too big for him. So you see, that's the tam-o'-shanter. It's a type of hat. Then he suggested that they should fill the pocket handkerchief with onions as a little present for his aunt. Peter did not seem to be enjoying himself. He kept hearing noises. I bet he was nervous to be back in that garden. Benjamin, on the contrary, was perfectly at home and ate a lettuce leaf. He said that he was in the habit of coming to the garden with his father to get lettuce for their Sunday dinner. The name of little Benjamin's papa was old Mr. Benjamin Bunny. The lettuces certainly were very fine. Peter did not eat anything. He said he should like to go home. Presently, he dropped half of the onions. Uh-oh. Hello, Sheba. Little Benjamin said that it was not possible to get back up the pear tree with a load of vegetables. He led the way boldly towards the other end of the garden. They went along a little walk on planks under a sunny red brick wall. Sheba, what you doing, girl? The mice sat on their doorsteps crackling cherry stones. They winked at Peter Rabbit and little Benjamin Bunny. Presently, Peter let the pocket handkerchief go again. Uh-oh, all those onions are spilling. They got amongst the flower pots and frames and tubs. Peter heard noises worse than ever. His eyes were as big as lollipops. He was a step or two in front of his cousin when he suddenly stopped. This is what those little rabbits saw around the corner. Little Benjamin took one look, and then in half a minute, less than no time, he hid himself and Peter and the onions underneath a large basket. What did they see? That's right, they saw a cat. The cat got up and stretched herself and came and sniffed at the basket. Perhaps she liked the smell of onions. Anyway, she sat down upon the top of the basket. She sat there for 5 hours. Oh my goodness, can you imagine? I cannot draw you a picture of Peter and Benjamin under the basket because it was quite dark. And because the smell of onions was fearful, it made Peter Rabbit and little Benjamin cry. Oh, Peter, good girl. The sun got round behind the wood, and it was quite late in the afternoon, but still the cat sat upon the basket. I know, Lily, what do you think's going to happen? I know. At length, there was a pitter-patter, and some bits of mortar fell from the wall above. The cat looked up and saw old Mr. Benjamin Bunny prancing along the top of the wall of the upper terrace. He was smoking a pipe of rabbit tobacco and had a little switch in his hand. He was looking for his son. Oh, Benjamin might be in trouble. Old Mr. Bunny had no opinion whatever of cats. He took a tremendous jump off the top of the wall onto the top of the cat and cuffed it off the basket and kicked it into the greenhouse, scratching off a handful of fur. Oh my goodness. The cat was too much surprised to scratch back. Oh my goodness gracious. Sheba, what do you think? When old Mr. Bunny had driven the cat into the greenhouse, he locked the door. Then he came back to the basket and took out his son Benjamin by the ears and gave him a little whip with the little switch. Then he took out his nephew Peter. Then he took out the handkerchief of onions and marched them home. When Mr. McGregor returned, about half an hour later, he observed several things which perplexed him. It looked as though some person had been walking all over the garden in a pair of clogs, only the footmarks were too ridiculously little. Also, he could not understand how the cat could have managed to shut herself up inside the greenhouse, locking the door up on the outside. When Peter got home, his mother forgave him because she was so glad to see that he had found his shoes and coat. Cottontail and Peter folded up the pocket handkerchief, and old Mrs. Rabbit strung up the onions and hung them from the kitchen ceiling with the bunches of herbs and the rabbit tobacco. So the end. So that tells the story of how Benjamin Bunny helped his cousin Peter get his clothes back. So I hope you enjoyed that story today, guys. I know it was a little longer than usual, but I thought it was a really great story. Didn't you, Sheba? Come on, say hello. Help me say goodbye. Come on. So Sheba says we'll see you again next week, guys. Bye-bye and have a great day. Bye. Bye.